Good morning. It is Monday, a steamy June Monday morning. It's the 26th day of 2023 here in Noblesville, Indiana, or wherever you're watching across the world. We know that we have viewers from all over the country, which is incredibly exciting, and all over the world for that matter. Welcome to another edition of Mental Health Monday for June 26, 2023. I am joined yet again by a great friend of mine who is just a absolute gem in this community, who gives her time freely, openly, and I just genuinely appreciate her. Kristen Boice, the owner of Pathways to Healing Counseling. Good morning, Kristen.
Good morning, Mayor Jenson. Thank you so much. I am so glad to be here and welcome everybody to the live. So thank you for just opportunity.
Yeah, well, we were just chatting offline before we went on about shame, because I identified some challenges that I was working with somebody on, and it was a shame cycle. And good old Kristen gave me some recommendations, some books by Brene Brown on the shame cycle. So, it's just, this is a constant conversation. It's not just a once a month Mental Health Monday. It is a constant conversation around all the topics that we are trying to tackle here today. So welcome to the show. We're going to do some exercises here before we get started, but just a quick highlight. I'm incredibly excited about this topic, and it's about the media and how the media impacts our mental health. And so we're going to dive into that, and we may cover some more depending on time, but that is a pretty meaty topic, and one that is incredibly topical right now, as I have the news out of the corner of my eye talking about Russia and the submarine. And so there's a lot of it all the time going on in our head, and whether it be social media, which I know is funny because you're watching us on Facebook Live, but social media or television media or print media, it all has an impact on how our mental health is working out, how we view our relationships, how we're tackling our day. It is all intertwined, and we're going to tackle that conversation a little bit today, answer some questions, give some tips on how to maneuver through it, maybe set some boundaries around it. I'm not the therapist, Kristen is, so I'm just going to stop saying buzzwords, and we're going to get to it here in just a second. But before we do, we always start with an exercise that I absolutely love, some square breathing. Kristen, I'll let you walk us through it. And I'm super wired today on like my 7th cup of coffee, if you can't tell. So
can't tell it all.
I am just ready to rock and roll.
I love it. You're like, woo, we're good.
Yeah, let's go.
I wanted you to go on and say, good morning, Vietnam. If you've ever seen that movie. What was it called? What is that movie called? Now I can't think of it, with Robin Williams. Anyways, we're going to start us off with some deep breathing. So we're going to start with our feet on the floor. Why do we do that? We do that to center us into this present moment. So anxiety takes us into the future. Depression really wants to take us into the past. And we're working on it being in the here and now. So first things first is we put our feet on the floor, pressing into your feet. We're going to inhale for 4 through your nose, hold for 4, and slowly exhale out your mouth for 8. And this helps regulate your nervous system. So if you feel stress, you're feeling exhaustion, you're feeling burnout, you're feeling activation in your nervous system for whatever reason, this is a way to offer yourself compassion and feel more centered in the moment. So you have less of a reaction and more ability to cope with what's happening in the moment. So let's do 2 breaths together, pressing your feet into the floor. Big, deep inhale. Hold and release. We're going to do one more. I can feel it in my shoulders, kind of noticing where you might feel tension or tightness in your nervous system, in your body. Let's do one more, pressing your feet into the floor and release. I try to get all of that out on that exhale.
Yeah. I love it. Like I said, it's such a simple exercise that brings like just instant relief for so many people. So I always tell people that I do it in the car a lot. I do it at home quite a bit. We're working with our kids. We were actually working with, I think Hank was having a little bit of a meltdown this weekend, and we were working on some breathing through the nose, out through the mouth. So again, they're not perfect as kids, but they certainly are seeing hopefully that behavior modeled, which is great. And it just gives you kind of an instant, somewhat of a relief in the moment there, which is what we're going for, which is great. So thank you for that exercise. And now we're going to turn our attention a little bit to media. And again, that word is, has transformed itself over the past 20, 30 years. It used to be print and radio and television. Now it is social media, it's blogs, it's podcasting. The list goes on. And a lot of it is used for good. Again, I would like to think that the show is being used for good, and it is a version of the media. But there is a lot that goes into it, not just for us, but our kids and those around us, what information we're digesting, when we're digesting it, how we're digesting it, and then how that's impacting us. So that's a quick little teaser and top off. I'll let you, Kristen, kind of go over and take it from here on this conversation.
I love statistics. So as you know, I will kind of dive into research because I like to know what is happening out there culturally. And then I look at it, how is it impacting mental health? And it definitely has an impact. So 69% of adults are on social media. If we just take that pocket of media, and 81% of kids and teens.
Wow.
So think how much they're consuming. Think of consumption, how many hours they're on it, how long they're on it, what are they consuming? What if, let me give you an example. So we just had the submarine situation, and a lot of people were consuming that like it was a fire hose. We wanted to know what was going to happen, and we were imagining what it was like. So we know that there was a submarine, it was a submersible called the Titan, that was made privately by a private company. They were going down to look at the Titanic. They were in the submersible. There was 5 individuals in the submersible. We could identify that feeling in our nervous system, them describing the oxygen was going to be gone at 96 hours. We are physiologically wired for empathy. So when we think of that situation, we immediately, if you're tapped into your nervous system, I could feel that in my stomach. I can almost feel the panic of, we've got to find these people. They're in this, submersible. And then we have different opinions on how it was handled, what's happening.
Why would you go down there in the first place?
Why would you put yourself in that situation? There are so many opinions, judgments, concerns. We can the list goes on. How was it impacting you emotionally? It actually turned out my kids do not watch TV. Somehow they got something from social media about the submersible. They started watching it. And we, as a family, were talking about it. I'm like, what is it bringing up for you? They're like, I would be panicked in there. How would I get through it? They're starting to imagine themselves in the submersible as much as they can based on their life experience, just like adults did. Mm-hmm. Then some people were getting angry. So some people deal with it with anger as a way. Some people dealt with it with panic. Some people dealt with it with a lot of compassion, or a mixture of all three. Some people, it brought up grief because they ended up not surviving. So that can bring up and tap into loss and grief. So when we think of media, it can impact us physiologically. So my nervous system could feel that anxiety of them being lost, perhaps, or, I can't find them, or trapped. So if you've ever had a feeling of being trapped, if you have any trauma, that can activate in your nervous system, because we know the body keeps the score. The body remembers anything from the past, even if we're not consciously aware of it. It can also, spiritually tap into, why do bad things happen to good people? All these, but we all have choices in this scenario. But at the end of the day, it affects us, all parts of ourselves, emotionally, physically, mentally, and spiritually. That's what the media does. And oftentimes it's tapping into fear. So if you look at the media and you notice, how do I feel when I read this story? How do I feel when I watch this news report? How do I feel when someone starts sharing news and maybe I don't want to hear it? And what do I do with that information? So we know, statistically speaking, that the media, we're seeing a very big uptick in especially teens in social media usage, leading to anxiety, depression, and suicidal ideation. Why is that? Because we're going into comparison over how we look, our bodies, our faces, our lives. We're going into I'm less than, so shame, I'm defective, I'm not good enough. There's been cyberbullying. There are strangers trying to prey on individuals that are maybe have had some trauma in their life or they're lonely. We're seeing an uptick in loneliness and isolation from social media. We are also seeing an uptick in this feeling of despair. Like, I don't know why I'm here. Like this despair on, look, these people look like they have a big purpose. And I don't know why I'm even here. I don't have a purpose like they do. I don't have this life like they do. And so we're seeing a significant impact on anxiety, depression, and mental health in general. And this is something I want to keep talking about. The other piece is body image. I'm seeing a very big swing with teens and body image and how they feel like they need to look a certain way. And we've always had that in the media. So I don't want to like we had magazines, we had television. It's not a new thing,
Is it
but
more readily available though?
more readily available. It's the frequency in which it's consumed. That's the difference. We're consuming media like it's a fire hose, like it's bombarding us. If you're on social media in particular, or television, we are being bombarded by catastrophic information. What does that do? Or we're being bombarded with, is it the filters? We're being bombarded with, this is the wonderful things in life. It's not all bad. We are seeing emotional impact from the consumption, the amount we're consuming, the amount of time we're consuming, and we are seeing a difference in PET scans in terms of brain development and emotional and mental wellness development from children.
So, that's fascinating because it's not just like a feeling or like it is scientific, it is data, it is medically proven that it's changing the way that we are developing. Because I always say, the 2 points I want to make there, I always say everyone's just as guilty. If you think about it, if you've posted a photo of yourself or your family or something on social media, did you post a bad photo on social media? No, I am my best self. And my chin is at my, we all done it. You know what I mean? Like, it is what you see is the best of me on social media, right? So everyone's been there, when it comes to that comparison and contrasting of that. I would say, behind that is layers and layers and layers and layers of things going on. And then I had a really great second point that I'm trying to figure out what it actually was. So we'll just stick with that as just being, we're all just as guilty of that going forward, and that comparison is seeing the perfect version of other people and ourselves.
Exactly, because I'm not going to post a meltdown I'm having on social media. That's just not going to happen. Now, what we're seeing is people are capturing other people's meltdowns because we can take videos everywhere we go. We're capturing almost so much that there's this sense of being watched. And teens have that, like they have the sense of like they're constantly being watched. It almost creates more internal battle of I'm being watched all the time, which is not reality because you're really not. But it is this feeling of if I make a mistake, that somehow someone's going to see it or notice it, which we didn't really have that much back then because we didn't have these phones that were like following us around. Because people are like, if you're going like this, someone will be, especially my kids, like, are you videotaping me? I'm like, no.
Yeah, no, I'm still team.
Yeah, that's the sense that they have, that they're being watched. And so it's a very different feeling.
I can tell you, one of the biggest not pitfalls, feelings of anxiousness I get is if I get up in the morning and I go on Facebook, I usually check it before I go to bed. Probably you're going to tell me that's a horrible idea. I get that. And I'll be like, so-and-so tagged you in a post on Noblesville Chatter Uncensored. And I'm like, oh my God, what did I do? You know what I mean? Like, what did they, you know what I mean? And usually it's something like, do you want to chime in? Which I don't usually want to, but it's usually something along those lines, but it's a huge feeling of anxiety for me, of like, oh my gosh, where was I that did I roll that stop sign? Did I, like, what did I do that somebody saw me do? And now I'm posting on Noblesville Chatter Uncensored.
Yeah. We're not allowed to be humans. We're not allowed to have any flaws, any like any imperfections.
Yeah.
And so it's creating a lot of perfectionism, which underneath perfectionism is shame.
Yeah.
So shame is like, I am just never going to live up to these standards. I am never going to be this person you want me to be. Instead of the freedom to say, hey, I'm human.
Mhm.
And this is who I am. I will take responsibility for my choices and actions. And we create stories. This is really important from media. Okay. This is one of the most important points. We create stories based on what we think is the truth, based on what's being reported, one, because they're only reporting so much, or we're only posting so much. And then we create a narrative of what we think is going on, and then what we think people think about us.
Yeah.
Based on what we're putting out there, or based on what we're consuming. And those stories are really rooted in shame. I mean,
Yeah.
those are rooted in fear of what people think. They're rooted in, oh my goodness, I'm not enough. And they're rooted in this idea that I know what people think about me. So I'll have people come into therapy and they're like, I know they think this of me. I'm like, well, how do you know that? Well, I just do. I just know. And I'm like, well, that sounds like that's going through your filter of shame rather than facts.
I was just talking to my brother Ryan, who's one of my closest confidants in life, about this conversation of like, we think people think about us way more than people think about us. And it's easier to say if you're not like in a shame cycle working through that or something. But really, I mean, I think we worry so much about what people think, and like the rest of society has moved on to their own thing. You know what I mean?
We're worried about we're worried about what other people think
Yes.
of us.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally different. So
I think we're building more of that with social media. That's the net of what I'm saying is we're seeing that we do feel like we're in the spotlight, and social media creates more of people are thinking about us because we're constantly scrolling or clicking on people's profiles, and it's for developmental purposes. We are not meant to feel like that people are thinking about us all the time. We already had that, when we go through middle school and high school, that, people think this or that of us. But now with social media, we feel like we're being scrutinized, like people are scrutinizing us.
I think one of the things you just said right there is really important. We are not wired to allow that to happen, for us to process that. And that's important to know. Like that is an abnormal thing for us.
Yeah. And I think the level of, I'm going to use social media to manage my shame, my anxiety, but it makes it worse. Like I'm just going to scroll, or I'm going to watch Fox News, or I'm going to watch CNN, or whatever news channel of choice to manage the anxiety. Research shows it amplifies the anxiety.
Mhm.
That's the difference. We think I need to know, or I don't want to be left out, FOMO, fear of missing out. So I'm going to get on the social media because I don't want to miss anything. I don't want to miss what someone posts, or I'm going to watch the news 24/7 because I don't want to miss anything. I need to know. Well, we really don't.
Yeah.
This is one of the things I'm recommending. Either one, get totally off of it, or that's kind of dramatic, not watching the news, or only allowing yourself like 5 minutes a day. Like I'm going to get on there, or a timed amount that you're on there, because the challenge is once you're on it, your brain automatically sucks you into the next thing. So especially on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, they're feeding you, and Twitter, they're feeding you more of what you want to hook you in. So for example, the submersible, if you are watching one video or you are watching one news source, they are going to keep feeding you more. And all of a sudden I'm down the rabbit hole of 45 minutes into this thing and having trouble getting myself out because I'm sucked into it. My emotions are sucked into it. My thoughts are sucked into it. And so I'm not doing any self-reflection, really. I'm just swimming in fear.
Yeah.
I'm swimming in anxiety. I'm not really reflecting on what's going on for me personally. It's a distraction.
Yeah. One thing I was going to say, I admittedly have the news on in my office all day long. Probably need to work on that. Got it. And but I will tell you, it is the same cycled stories over and over and over and over. Like every 2 hours, I'm hearing about Princess Kate playing tennis at Wimbledon, and I'm like, it's the same stuff. So it's not like earth-shattering news, right? And I have to remind myself, if there's breaking news, someone will find me and tell me if I need to know about it. And I've gone through times where I'm like, I'm only going to check once a day. I'm only going to check Twitter once a day. And it's actually really great. And by the end of the day, I check it. And I'm like, wow, I mean, I enjoyed checking it in that moment, but I'm like, nothing really happened that like altered my course of fate that day. I mean, again, Princess Kate playing tennis at Wimbledon didn't really change how or affect my day. So if you take a step back, if you can let yourself take a step back and realize that it is a healthy acknowledgement. Now, whether you can do it on a daily basis is a different situation. The one thing I was going to say earlier that I totally blanked on is one of the challenges I have in my job sometimes, and I'm certain you do as well, is just the factual or unfactual information being fed on social media. I just got out of a meeting a few minutes ago with a group of people who were hell-bent that they knew about something going on in the city because they read about it on Facebook. And it's like trying to unwind that. And usually there's like a nugget of truth in there. You know what I mean? Like there's something that may have happened that we can kind of get to, but like the external stories around it is unbelievable. And the amount of time you spend debunking non-factual information from the media is brutal at times and a huge time suck.
It's true because our brains love information, and it creates like the feeling of certainty. So if I have information and I know it to be true, then I feel like I feel more safe. Even if I don't like the information, I feel more safe. My brain says I know what's happening. And so it grasps towards, if someone says something, it says, okay, then I know that is the case. When really we don't really know. And so debunking that information can be very hard because it's almost like it's cemented. Like, no, I know this, and that feels safe to me, not consciously, but we're holding that. And so you're bumping up against, if you debunk something that isn't true, the brain wants to go, but that felt safe for me to think that that's the truth, even if I didn't like it, even if I didn't want it to be the truth. I feel like I know. That when when you were in middle school or high school and you got gossip.
Oh yeah, knowledge is power.
I mean, that's a way to hotwire connection. It's not a healthy way to hotwire connection, but you feel like you're in the know, you belong, you're a part of it. And so that's what information does. It's like it creates that same kind of idea of I know, therefore there's some like worth and power in it to some extent because it creates a feeling of safety.
And when you know that information, oftentimes you don't keep that information to yourself. You want to share that knowledge. And if it's wrong information, that's where we get ourselves into a problem.
Correct. So if you see people going, well, this road is going to be built at such and such a time, and then they go tell their friends, and then they go tell their friends, and they don't even remember where they got the source from.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden it's the telephone game.
Yeah, 100%.
It's the telephone game. So now I have clinched onto that information because now I feel like I know the information that helps me know when that's going to be done, even if it's not factual. So you're up against this feeling of a felt sense of security and safety, even though it's not really that.
Yeah. And now you've totally uncovered why I give out my personal cell phone number all the time. Which if you follow along with me on social media, you know that I do that intentionally because it's my chance to debunk unfactual information to try to help bring temperatures down on rumors, quite frankly. That's kind of why I employ that method, which nobody ever takes me up on most of the time. But
this is an interesting conversation though about rumors and like non-factual information. How do we get past that so we can get truths out?
Yeah.
Like what is the vehicle? I mean, do we have to use media again to
you have to double down, right? And that's what we launched. If you follow on the city's Facebook page, we have a Friday 5. And that was really intentional. It's a great little 5-minute blurb on information, but a lot of it is to put a proactive way to debunk some of the things we've heard throughout the week, that we can put factual information out. Now, again, people have to watch it. They have to share it. They have to, whatnot. But it is very difficult to get the truth out and factual information out in our society because you're competing with so many other noises around us.
Here's another factor. I want to take it a level deeper.
Yep.
I want to take it to family systems. Okay, we know media impacts family systems because we're consuming media. And then if my anxiety over the submersible, let's say, for example, I'm just throwing this out there, then my kids start feeling anxious about it. It transfers. Okay. The one recommendation I have that is so important when it comes to media and family is I love the idea of family gatherings. We used to call them family meetings. I think people get a little twitchy because it feels a little like, oh, we're going to have a confrontation. If I say family gathering, it's like where we're going to talk about what did you see on social media? What did you hear? How do you feel? What fears does that bring up in you? We have to be talking about this with our kids. We have to be talking about this with our partner. Now, I do know with partners, it can create conflict, especially when it comes to politics, because so and so will latch on to maybe this news network and the partner may latch onto a different one and they disagree and they don't see eye to eye. That we may need to have intervention and help with that. So a therapist might need, or a third party might need to come in for some assistance or have some boundaries on, we're going to put a pin in that. And that's maybe not a subject that we're going to resolve or see eye to eye on. But it's really important that families have weekly gatherings to talk about what they're consuming on social media, especially if your kids have social media or they're seeing news on in your home, or they're hearing news on the radio or a podcast or anything like that, or they're overhearing you talk. It's important that we're talking about it, we're processing it, and we're allowing a safe space for them to share what they're feeling. So if they say, well, nothing, I just saw my friends, they're posting. Well, how do you feel when you see your friends posting? For example, when we have teens, you're going to see that they'll post, their friends will post, and maybe they're not included in an event. And so we say, well, what did that bring up for you? Well, I feel like they don't really care about me. I feel like they don't really like me. And the story I'm making up, because that's the words we use in my home, the story I'm making up is they don't really want me a part of the group. Tell me more about that. This is important in homes that we're talking like this. This is important in homes. We're talking about what they're consuming and what is going on inside of them as a result of what they're consuming, what they're watching, what they're seeing, what they're hearing. So we are as a family talking about that.
So this is a perfect segue into our last little section here, because I want to talk about kind of strategies or tactics for yourself, for your family. You talked about the family meeting. That's great. How, as an individual, what tactics can we put in place maybe to regulate ourselves a little bit on the media and the impact it's having on us? But then also maybe as a social media person, how do I need to maybe think differently about what I'm posting, or how do I move forward in the social media world? Because it's probably not going away. But how do I navigate that myself if I want to be active on social media?
Three tips, since we're almost out of time. One is self-awareness. Are you even aware of how you feel when you're on it? Because a lot of us are using it as a numbing. We're just scrolling, but we're not really connected to what's happening on the inside. So one, awareness of your body sensations, of what you're feeling, what your thoughts are. Is it triggering shame and fear? Chances are that we need to get off of it at that moment. Take a breath, take a breather, take a break. I recommend number 2 is either processing what you're feeling with another person, a therapist, a friend, a partner, whoever you trust, or you're writing it out. Why do I think writing it out is so important? Because you're releasing it. Third thing is limits. What are your boundaries for yourself? Because that will lead to, if we're not self-aware, and that's another topic we can talk about another day, is burnout. You're going to get physical sensations, demotivation, and you've got to check in with, is it creating more anxiety, depression, and shame and fear within me, the amount I'm consuming? So you've got to notice, how much are you consuming? How self-aware are you on the amount, like what it's doing to you physiologically and emotionally and mentally? And then you're going to have to work on setting some limits, because it's kind of like when smoking was really a thing and we didn't know better. We were just doing it because we didn't know it was bad for us. Now it's not necessarily bad or good. We do know there's a correlation between anxiety, depression, and mental health the more media you're consuming. So you've got to work on a timer, a limit, or sometimes I tell people to do a fast, get off of it. Don't watch any media for a certain amount of time and notice the difference. Sometimes we don't even recognize the difference between when we're consuming and when we're not.
Well, that was awesome. And again, I think we'll probably dive into this again at later, maybe in the year, because I think this is not going away. And it's a constant reminder as kids are growing up. Our kids at home, for example, have timers on their iPads. Julie, Jenson, and I, this is not a bone of contention, but it's something that is concerning to us about this. So it's not going to go away. And I do want to tackle maybe later this summer burnout, because I do think that is a topic. And you might say, well, why at the end of the summer? It's a relaxing time. Not if you have kids at home, folks. It's not at all relaxing time. And there's probably a lot of parents that are burnt out by the time it's time to go back to school. So maybe we'll tackle that next time as well. But this is an awesome conversation, Kristen. Thank you for leading us through that. I'll let you get the final word on if some folks are struggling right now with mental health, addiction, anxiety, depression, the list goes on and on. Where do they turn?
988, text, call 24/7. This is the best resource we have that has launched within the last year, that if we could just push it out to everybody. So please share it. If nobody knows about 988, we can't get the word out. So please share it. Or if you need it, you can use it any time, day or night. Use it. Text them. They are there for support. They're trained clinicians on the other side. And it's the new 911 for mental health, 988.
Love it. Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone, for listening. Enjoy a wonderful 4th of July coming up here next week. Celebrate with your family and friends, but square breathe your way through that, because it can be a stressful time as well. And we'll see you back here next month for another edition of Mental Health Monday. Kristen Boice, you're the best. Thanks a million.
Thank you.
All right.